It is Wednesday, and today the president is going to address the nation, I think at 9 p.m. tonight, about something. No one knows what it is, but we all have our guesses. And why is this very important for us? Because, as you know, we are sitting on a coiled spring. That is what the market is right now. Here you see Tesla today up again 1.65%. If you go year to date, you see that we are on a downtrend and right now 16% down for the year. And we had that final last slide this week. And we also know that the Nasdaq is not doing well, but on a great recovery for the last 2 days. Right? We are down for the year 6.1%. And why is that? It is because of the Iran war. It is because of oil and the oil price, the Strait of Hormuz, and the escalation of the war. About that, everyone knows that President Trump never intended this to escalate. It is very clear at that moment that President Trump expected this to be quick, that he was misled, probably by Mossad and maybe the CIA, about the probability of making this a quick Venezuela-like intervention. He got news from Mossad or CIA or both that the leadership of Iran is in one room. Israel decided to kill them. They promised the president it's going to be over very soon, just be very hard in the bombing and it's all going to be fine. The people of Iran will rise up. None of that has happened, of course. Iran has proven to be much more resilient than anyone who hates them wants to admit. And that is the situation. Since then, we have seen a lot of back and forth and President Trump trying to get out of this whole thing. And he's going to address the nation tonight. Now, there are two possibilities what he's going to say. These possibilities matter a lot because there are two extreme cases. Both of them are extreme, and it's very likely that at least one of them, or that one of them, is going to become a reality. When I look at the market, I just see one thing. Look at this. Zoom out for a year. We are on this uptrend since last April. On a 5-year level, we are on a large uptrend. What is behind this uptrend? What is behind this uptrend since 2023? It is AI. It is a transformation of the markets. It's a transformation of the economy. It is an enormous, unparalleled, unprecedented productivity boost that we are experiencing right now. Those of us who have a lot of exposure to AI, which is true for me on 3 fronts, when I analyze the markets as an investor of Pioneer Reserve, of the Pioneer bonds, and personally, I see all the massive impact and the numbers of AI, the investments, the capex, but also the effects. Then I see it when I talk with business leaders about it. Everyone is now all over this thing. Anthropic, Claude is driving enterprise adoption. So is OpenAI. Grok is doing image generation, all kinds of stuff, and revolutionizing this. We see now the inflection point where AI truly drives value. And then I see it as, the guy who runs Pioneer Lands with you, all of you. When we vibe code everything, when we create new Pioneer Academies and things like that. This is all coming out this week and next week, by the way. We have some amazing new things coming out. But what I see is the capability of AI going through the roof. And that has a tremendous effect on the entire economy, and that has a tremendous effect on profits and earnings and productivity. That is why we are in the biggest bull market probably ever. And within the middle of that greatest bull market, we see this downtrend here for the last 6 months. It's the last 6 months. Look at this. Just down, 4% down, the Nasdaq Composite over the last 6 months. And that means we are falling against the underlying fundamentals. And that means we are sitting on an increasingly coiled spring. And why do we sit on that coiled spring? Because of the Iran war. Because oil is going up and up. That is why President Trump, who doesn't like these kinds of things, is now in a predicament. What does he do? Does he actually retreat and sell it to us as a victory? Or does he double down? And doubling down at some point means boots on the ground. Now, in my assessment, based on everything I know about President Trump, everything I've observed with him so far, and I would say 90% of analysts, commentators, and people who know something are on the same page with me. So it's not a lot of alpha I'm adding here. But most people agree with me, President Trump is not up for an escalation of this war. It would be destructive to his presidency. It would be a potential or high probability disaster for the United States. And it would potentially be the biggest defeat the United States has ever experienced. And if you are a big fan of the United States Armed Forces and President Trump, I'm supportive too. I'm just telling you, you're opening up that potential Pandora's box. Even if there's only a 20 or 30% chance of this going horribly wrong, that's a risk. Why would you ever take that risk? And so it comes down tonight to that point where President Trump will either announce that this has ended, that he has achieved his goals, and he will list a bunch of goals. He has a lot of choices for his goals because he has said all kinds of things. So he can say we want to destroy the rockets, yada, 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 right? Whatever he wants, he can declare victory. Now, is anyone going to buy this? I'm just judging for myself. I don't care. Whatever he says, as long as he ends the war, I'm going to be supportive and give him the victory, right? I'm not going to sit here and argue he didn't win. And I think most people are on the same page with me. They say like, sure, Joe, let's give President Trump the win. No one cares. No one cares about this whole thing. We just care for it being over because it makes no sense. I would put the probability of Trump announcing an end to the war and victory and saying there's a new regime, they're amazing, everything's great, the Strait of Hormuz can now be dealt with by the Europeans, for example. The probability of this happening tonight, in my opinion, is 75%. Maybe even 80%. The problem is we have a tail risk. If for whatever reason President Trump announces, oh, the negotiations have failed, we are going to double down, we are going in. By the way, all of this is theater. All of that was planned from the outset a week ago or something, either outcome. Then the market will absolutely crash. I can promise you that. Because the markets went up now because they're hopeful. They're hopeful that this is over. No one likes it. It makes no sense to anyone. And if it's over, we are setting up for an enormous rally that you don't want to miss. And I think if this is truly over, tomorrow could be an extremely good green day because we have a lot of catch up to do. Let's go back to Tesla to just see what I mean with that. Tesla fell from, beginning of February, 450. Let that sink in. Tesla could run to 450 without any reason just because of this is being stopped. So there is an enormous upside here. But President Trump has to announce, look at this, here's Tesla, 450. That was on January 22nd. Since then, nothing bad happened. I was predicting we see Tesla deflating, but let's remember, we are now in April. Cybercap is coming. So we are setting up for an enormous potential rally, but it is conditional on President Trump stopping this thing. So how do I position myself now? You know that I took a lot of stakes off the table, more than ever before, more than I ever took off the table. And that was exactly here. I did a good job. On Tuesday last week, I said, I don't like the whole setup. And I actually saved myself from this whole thing here, which was very good for my alpha. I was 3% alpha over Tesla and also a lot of alpha over the market, by the way, last week. So this week I'm a little bit behind, not much, but I'm a little bit behind because of course I was not positioned for that run up. I'm still overall winning pretty big, but I decided to put some stakes back on the table. Not full leverage, of course, because we have that 25% tail risk. So from my perspective, it is time to risk on a little bit, 30% or something of the risk you want to actually take with full exposure. It's what President Trump says. And if he decides to end this whole madness, then we are setting up for a giant rally. And if you miss a 5% move of Tesla up, that would be 15 up. That would be 390 or something. You're not missing out on much because this can go up all the way to 420, 430, 450. Even before we see the cybercap rollout. And this is what I want to conclude with after I shared this with you. I want to conclude with a perspective on what Tesla is actually doing and preparing here. Because Tesla, don't forget, we are now in April. There are lots of interesting things coming out that are very important for us. In case you didn't see this, FSD 14.3 is actually being confirmed by Elon Musk that this is coming out next week. And in case you didn't know, 14.3 is the version we all have waited for a long time. Let's see, FSD 14.3. This is the version that, at least that is what we knew about it, 10x larger than the previous version, and the previous version was already, some say, ready for rollout with a little bit of fine-tuning. And now we have that model coming out. And the expectations of me, but also a bunch of other investors and analysts and experts on Tesla are that 14.3 is the version that is the commercial version for Robotaxi. Now we have to see if that's true. We don't know. But it just rolled out today for early users, and next week it will roll out for everyone. And of course, it coincides completely with CyberCap. With the CyberCap launch, the CyberCap manufacturing getting into high gear. And you guys know that CyberCap for me was the central decision point, where I said that is why I maintain my timeline, that we will see over 1,000 robotaxi being rolled out in April. Maybe I'm off by a month, maybe it's May. But I'm sticking on my timeline, that I have been talking about for a year now, for nearly a year, that April 2026 is the point where we see the inflection point. Now, a lot of people think, Joe, you were wrong because it is April and look at the robotaxi tracker. We are not there yet. But I think people might get a little surprised. I'm sticking to my prediction that it's April. Maybe I'm early a month, maybe 2, but not much more. Here's the robotaxi tracker. Here is what we see. We have 539 vehicles total fleet now. Here, look at this. We have 94 in Austin, and it is April, and CyberCap is rolling out, and that will be very interesting. So all of that is happening. Iran is the only problem that is holding us back. But Iran has also put us into a position to set up for a potential vast rally. So this is the trick. Get prepared for this whole rally situation, but keep an eye on the downside risk. If for whatever reason Trump decides to blow up his presidency tonight, we will see a crash. And we have to be prepared. I'm willing to take some risks here because I do not think it would be an absolute pattern breaker for Trump to do something that self-damaging. But we don't know. Weird things happen over the last 3 weeks. The fact that he didn't pull out is a concerning sign that something is not totally right, and we have to be concerned. So let's see what happens, but I'm risk on, not completely risk on, but a third additional risk on. If everything goes right tonight, it is time to really double down. That's what I believe. Even if Tesla goes up, do not think you're missing out or you already missed out on something. I believe then we are setting up for a giant rally. It will depend what Trump says. Let's see. Tomorrow I will comment on this and tell you guys what I am doing. I hope that was interesting. Stay vigilant, watch the president and watch the situation, and I see you tomorrow.